This story started Thursday when David Corn and Daniel Schulman at Mother Jones magazine published a report that said that the Fox News host Bill O'Reilly, over time and frequently in multiple venues, including his current gig on Fox News, he had misrepresented his reporting for CBS News in the 1980s during the Falklands War. The Falklands War was a war fought between Argentina and the UK, but it wasn't fought on the mainland of either country. It was fought on the Falkland Islands, which are a really isolated place. They're hundreds of miles off the Argentinian coast. What David Corn and Daniel Schulman pointed out was that Mr. O'Reilly has described himself as reporting from, quote, an active war zone. He has said that he was in a war zone in Argentina in the Falklands. That does not appear to have been the case. Mr. O'Reilly did report on the Falklands War, but he reported on that war from mainland Argentina, from the country's capital city, which is more than 1,000 miles away from the fighting in the Falklands. Mr. O'Reilly has tried to defend himself by saying, well, he did cover a rowdy protest while he was in the capital of Argentina, which, okay, sure, but covering a protest about a war is not the same thing as covering the actual war or being in a war zone, which is how he has repeatedly described what he did. So that's not good, right? No correction or apology, though. Instead, the response has been, attack!
Basically, David Corn, a liar, says I exaggerated situations in the Falklands War and the Salvadoran War. Here's the truth. Everything I've said about my reportorial career, everything, is true. I had to spend hours last night on the phone with various reporters and crawling around my basement covered with dust trying to find documents from 33 years ago. Again, it was a miracle I found them. All because an irresponsible gutter snipe, a far-left zealot, who has attacked Fox News many times before, spit the stuff out on the net.
An irresponsible gutter snipe, a far-left zealot, a liar. Mr. O'Reilly then went further than that. He gave an interview in which he said that when the truth came out about this story, David Corn would be, quote, in the kill zone, where he deserves to be. When Mother Jones challenged that comment as basically out of bounds, asked for retraction or an apology, Bill O'Reilly said that was just slang, it was just a figure of speech, didn't take it back. Mr. O'Reilly has since gone on to threaten other reporters who have simply tried to report out this story. After the kill zone comments about David Corn, Mr. O'Reilly then told a reporter from the New York Times that if he thought any of her coverage was inappropriate, quote, I'm coming after you with everything I have. You can take it as a threat. Fox News has reporters on staff. Fox News reporters have to believe that their news organization would have their back if they got threatened for just doing their job as reporters. Fox News, I am sure, does not want its reporters threatened for doing their jobs. But Fox News has not said anything about their flagship host issuing these threats to reporters at other news organizations. And that just seems untenable for a news organization. Not just for Mr. O'Reilly, who issued the threats, but for his employer, who is effectively endorsing them with this statement of unqualified support they put out for Mr. O'Reilly in the midst of all this. I mean, this has got to send a chill down the spine of anyone who reports for Fox in dangerous situations. And for Mr. O'Reilly himself, the problem is getting worse and not better over time. Since David Corn's report last week and Mr. O'Reilly's loud and bombastic response with all the threats and the vitriol and all the rest of it, Fox and Mr. O'Reilly have had a different response to new allegations that have been raised about Mr. O'Reilly's reporting since then. Today, there were new questions raised about an event that Mr. O'Reilly writes about in his book, which is about the JFK assassination. In the book, he describes traveling to Florida in 1977 to try to interview an acquaintance of JFK assassin Lee Harvey Oswald. He says that as he knocked on that man's door in Florida to try to interview him, he, quote, heard the shotgun blast that marked the suicide of the man. This is not just a story that Mr. O'Reilly told in his book. He has told it on the Fox News channel as well.
Now, I reported on this guy when I was working at WFAA TV in Dallas, this Moorenshield, because he taught at Bishop College in Dallas. I can't put that together. Now, I chased Moorenshield to Florida, and I was about to knock on the door where he was, his daughter's house, and he blew his brains out with a shotgun.
Really?
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my goodness, really? No, not really. At least not according to colleagues of Bill O'Reilly's at the time, who have said this week that he was not actually in Florida when that man killed himself at his Florida home, let alone standing on the guy's doorstep and able to hear the shotgun blast. Mr. O'Reilly was actually, according to his colleagues, in Dallas, Texas at the time the suicide happened, in Florida. That account appears to be corroborated by one of Bill O'Reilly's sources at the time, a congressional investigator who wrote in his autobiography in 1993 that he got a call from this Dallas TV reporter named Bill O'Reilly the day of the suicide. And this reporter, Bill O'Reilly, calling from Dallas, wanted to know if the reports about this Florida suicide were true. Is this thing true that I now claim I personally witnessed?
I chased Demoren to Florida, and I was about to knock on the door where he was, his daughter's house, and he blew his brains out with a shotgun.
We reached out to the Fox News channel today to see if they had any comment on this latest challenge to Mr. O'Reilly's reporting and the way he has talked about it on the Fox News channel. They so far have not responded to our requests for comment on that. They appear to be deflecting requests for comment on this matter to the publisher of Mr. O'Reilly's book about the JFK assassination. So we also reached out to the publisher of Mr. O'Reilly's book about the JFK assassination, and the publisher told us this, quote, "We fully stand behind Bill O'Reilly and his bestseller, Killing Kennedy, and we're very proud to count him as one of our most important authors. This one passage is immaterial to the story being told by this terrific book, and we have no plans to look into this matter." It doesn't matter. We don't care if it's not true. We're not looking into it. Mr. O'Reilly has also faced criticism on another matter for saying that he saw nuns killed in El Salvador. Here's him making that claim on Fox News right after the Newtown Elementary School massacre in a wide-ranging discussion about the nature of evil.
I don't think a lot of people understand. My mother, for example, doesn't understand evil. When I would tell her, hey, Mom, I was in El Salvador and I saw nuns get shot in the back of the head, she almost couldn't process it. She couldn't process it.
Mr. O'Reilly did not see nuns get shot in the back of the head in El Salvador, even if that is what he told his poor mom. American Catholic nuns were killed in El Salvador in December 1980. Mr. O'Reilly did not see them killed. He did not visit El Salvador until the following year. Tonight, Fox News gave us a statement from Mr. O'Reilly about where that came from, since there's no way he could have actually seen what he says he saw. Their statement is this, quote, "While in El Salvador, reporters were shown horrendous images of violence that were never broadcast, including depictions of nuns who were murdered. The mention of the nuns on my program came the day of the Newtown massacre. The segment was about evil and how hard it is for folks to comprehend it. I used the murdered nuns as an example of that evil. That's what I was referring to when I say I saw nuns get shot in the back of the head. No one could possibly take that segment as reporting on El Salvador." That statement from Mr. O'Reilly tonight saying he was not literally talking about El Salvador, he was just talking about evil in the context of Newtown. That's the only reason he brought it up. That does not explain, however, why Mr. O'Reilly said the exact same thing 7 years before Newtown ever happened.
I've seen much worse behavior on the masculine side than the feminine side in my life. All right, I've seen guys gun down nuns in El Salvador.
No, he hasn't. But as of right now, he's not correcting that.